Welcome to the 98% podcast where we hear real stories from real people. And I'm here with Tiffany. So, Tiffany, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tiffany. I'm 34, stay-at-home mom, married. I've got a couple kids. Daisy, who's 6, actually. She just turned 6. And Zeke, who is 10. Pretty boring. So there's not much else.
I'm sure that's not true.
There's not much else to it.
Okay. So then how do you know me?
I met you through one of my friends, and we met at my first Highland Games, which was also your first Highland Games, I think.
Yes, which was the one in Wichita. That was your first too?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I heard you performed extremely well too.
I wouldn't say that, but I did my best.
Well, what did you place? What did you place?
Well, I placed second, but that's out of 2 people.
Oh.
So it's not hard to get second place if there's only 2 of you.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel like I can brag on that, but I did hold my own, and I won 2 of the 9 events. So
that's good. Yeah, I came in second also.
nice.
We did have 7 though, but that was fun. I really enjoyed that. So I'm sure you're doing more, right?
Yes, I actually have St. Louis in a couple weeks. And then I'm going to do a couple at Tom's this year. I think I have one in Lawrence. And the Kansas City ones, I just got that date today. The Kansas City ones are going to be in August 16th. So, yeah.
Cool. But it looks like we're going to be at all the same events then.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll see you at all of those.
Yeah. It's funny. That one is only it's like next weekend. It's already flying by.
St. Louis?
Yeah, it's next weekend.
Yeah, I know. I'm not ready.
That's okay. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to have you on the next Highland Games podcast that we do.
Oh, fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Is that fair? Okay. So I don't know if we'll do one right after these games, but we'll see. But we definitely need to do some more. We talked about it. The gang all liked it too, so we'll have to do that. Okay. Cool. So just to let you know, so obviously I gave you the questions in advance, but the goal of this whole podcast is just for you and the audience to kind of connect on stories, right? So for you to share your story and some of the stuff you've been through, and hopefully the audience can connect. So we'll start from the beginning here with the first question. The first question is, what was growing up like for you?
And this first one's like a doozy.
Oh no.
So we're just gonna hop right into it. It was tough. I had a very tough, traumatic childhood. And from outsiders who might watch this from my end, probably don't know that. Because it was only tough at home and everything. It all looked good on paper, but then, once you got back to the house, it was pretty terrible. So, childhood was really tough. I do have some, obviously some good things I look back on. But yeah, it wasn't the best of times. So, yeah.
Okay. So how did that make you feel then, having people? I mean, I assume you probably were pretty misunderstood then if you had the life outside that seemed fine and then the home life that was way different.
Well, I think so. My dad was really abusive, and he was very abusive at home, but not abusive in public. And so, he was a deacon in the church, and he preached in church, and we were at church I grew up Seventh-day Adventist. So we're at church every Sabbath, And so we were very involved in the church, and I didn't realize that the way I was being treated, I guess, was wrong until I was older. So I thought it was all normal, and I thought that happened to everybody, and it was just normal. So I never realized really. I was kind of a mess of a kid. I have terrible ADHD. So I was very hyperactive and stuff, and I always felt like I never fit in with the other kids. And I think that's like, you're asking how I felt. I think the most prominent of things I felt in childhood was like I didn't fit in, or I was always a little weird, but I could never really understand why. And that was really where most of my feelings were. But then as I got older, now I realized that like probably a lot of those issues were because I just had like a really, a terrible home life. Did I answer the question?
What? Yeah, for sure. So when did you come to that realization that that wasn't a normal childhood?
Um, I think the older I got, the more I realized that like he shouldn't be hitting me like that, and I didn't want him to be hitting me like that. And I didn't really realize how bad anything was until I went to private school. And I don't remember what the name of the movie was, but I went to a Seventh-day Adventist boarding school for like a semester. It's not like a military school. It's a privilege kind of thing. You go, it's college prep, you live there, whatever. So I was there, and we all watched a movie together, and it was about a little girl who was being abused by her father, sexually and emotionally and, physically abused. And I watched it, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
I've been through a lot of that. And I kind of had a meltdown. I don't remember a lot. I think my therapist says it's because of like the trauma, but I lose a lot of information. So I don't remember a lot. There's a lot of gaps that I don't remember or I get wrong. But I think that was a really defining moment of realizing like how I had been treated before wasn't okay. I was already out of the situation by then. My parents had split. It was just me and my mom.
Yeah.
By that point, but that was the moment where I really realized like, wow, I should not have been treated like that. And then I still think I really downplayed a lot of it until as I got older and I started having my children became the age that I was when I remembered all this stuff happening. And I realized I would never do any of these things to my children. I would never say these things. I would never physically hurt my kids the way I was. And I would never, do any of the other things. I would never treat my kids the way I was treated. And I think that's when I realized, like, just in the last probably 10 years, how bad it really was. Because I guess my children came of age and I realized that I could never even rationalize treating them that way.
It's interesting how sometimes it takes us seeing something from a different perspective for it to hit, right? Like watching that show or something and seeing like, wait, that's not right. And then realizing that, because I've noticed some common themes because we've had quite a few guests on here, and a lot of them have said the same things, that they kind of justified it not being so bad or whatever just because they downplayed it, right? I feel like that kind of speaks to the resiliency of kids too, is like somehow we find ways to keep ourselves safe, whether it be forgetting some of the stuff that happened or downplaying the situation. But it's very interesting because I've even, my mom, she was on the podcast too, and she had a lot of moments like that too where she just downplayed it forever. And she's in her 50s and just now realizing that, like, Wow, like just really kind of understanding that the situation wasn't good. So that's
Yeah.
very, very fascinating to think about. So how do you think that affects you? Do you think it still affects you now, or how does it affect you?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm missing gaps. So I think some things don't affect me as much as they could have. My sister, in a therapy session, my sister was there with me, and she told my therapist something that was really traumatic that happened to me that she witnessed and she stepped in for. And I don't remember it at all. At all. Um,
Wow.
but it absolutely affects me. It affects me in sometimes I'm a little too helpful or people pleasing. Um
Mhm.
I apologize way too much, and I apologize for apologizing. So it it's absolutely affected me, and it's affected me as in I struggle with depression and just understanding it really chips away at your self-worth as a child. I have I'm in my 30s and I'm just now learning to teach myself to have self-worth because I wasn't taught that. I was just broken down all the time. Not my mother. My mother's just wonderful. She's the sweetest thing. But my father, he would just break me down and tear me down everything I did, everything about my personality, how I looked. And so it's even taking me as an adult to unlearn those things that he taught me about myself and learning to love myself and realize that it's okay that I talk too much and things about my body that he gave me complexes about. um they're not so bad. It's just I grew the way I did and that's okay. And but I'm learning that self-love and I'm learning those things um because I wasn't taught, and that is very hard. It's also very hard to unlearn the toxic bad habits that I grew up with in my childhood, and I'm learning what those are as I have children and as I parent. And like it's hard not to automatically just have a short fuse and like yell at your kid, but pause and take a moment, figure out what's going on, and then address the situation. Or to even if you lose your temper, like, sorry, let's take it back down. Hold on. Okay, let's try this again and readjust. Just learning those things. And I'm not saying the yelling necessarily is abuse or anything like that, but there are bad habits that I am unlearning that I didn't realize I had from growing up that way. Um, and ignoring problems, just shoving it under the rug. um, but it affects me a lot. It absolutely shaped who I was. I have some really like my mom was wonderful and I had this really wonderful teacher um that really kept me afloat and I think kept um helped me become not swallowed by that situation I was in. Um and they affected me too and they've shaped who I am, but it still absolutely affects me in day-to-day life. I mean, I struggle all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So then, what are some of the things that you've done in order to? Because you mentioned like unlearning stuff. So, what are
Mhm.
some of those things that you've done to help you with that?
Um, a lot of self-reflection. Now, for a long time, I didn't really deal with anything. Um, I didn't go to a
Mhm.
therapist. I just ignored it and I'm fine. I didn't deal with anything. I was very emotionally shut off. I just went through life and day to day, but I was not really emotionally deep or grounded at all,
Hmm.
until I kind
Yeah.
of had, I guess, a mental breakdown a few years ago, a couple years ago. And I got really suicidal and I almost killed myself. And after that, I told my sister, and she reached out to her friend who is a retired therapist, and we hit it off. And so I talked to her now, and she really helped me get out of that dark place. Um, and so, talking to a therapist, and I think a big part of it is acknowledging how bad it was and that I'm doing really well for what I went through. And, I definitely could have turned to drugs or alcohol or other things. But instead, if I'm having a bad mental day, I take it out in the gym. I lift it out. I go out to the field and I throw and work on Highland Games and train. If I'm having a really bad day and I can't do any of those healthy things, I just dive into a book and just shut my brain off. Sometimes you don't need to overthink it. Sometimes you just need to pause and give yourself a moment. So, I'll read a book. What are some other things I do to unlearn? I'm definitely learning how to handle my short temper with my children. And I think that's just all about being self-conscious, and not in the sense of I'm worried about what other people think of me, but just being mindful of who I want my children to be and how I have to set an example so that they can be those people. So if I catch myself losing my temper, I will pause in that moment, stop mid sentence, and apologize to my children. I was reconnecting there. I will stop mid sentence, apologize to my kids or my husband or whoever, and just give me a second. I take a deep breath and I collect myself and then think about, okay, what is a kind way I can say this? Instead of just losing my temper and speaking with anger, how can I logically get my point across? My mother-in-law, she taught me something. She said something that has always stuck with me. And I was talking to her one time about something. She was like, your presentation sucks. You can say almost anything to anybody, but you have to be mindful about how you say it. Think about your presentation.
Hmm.
How are you presenting it to this person? Are you just attacking them? Or are you saying, okay, logically, here's the problem. This is the problem. This is what's going to happen. You know, Another thing I like to live by is, something I tell my children is your message is getting lost in your volume. And that's something I have to constantly remind myself, because something will happen and I'm just, hey, don't do, no, hold on. You can't do that because this could happen or this could happen, or, it's not kind or polite. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm unlearning and doing to unlearn, is I'm just being conscious of how I present myself and not being afraid to apologize if I get it wrong, because I am unlearning things and I
Uh-huh.
am learning to be who I want to be. And so you have to be mindful of that. You have to have a sense of, what's the word? Think of it. Accountability for yourself. You can't
Uh-huh.
always trust other people to be accountable for you or your actions or your words and call you out. You have to be mindful enough and present with yourself enough to be accountable for your own actions and your own words and your own volume.
Yeah. Wow. You know what's really interesting is it goes back to that old saying, is like people, they won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. You've heard that before, right?
I haven't. Or
right? One of
maybe
the
I
most.
have and I forgot. I
What? You've
never
never
think
heard that
about
before?
it.
Okay, it's like one of those old sayings that I just heard all the time, and it's funny because that goes to your point. Is like sometimes it's not about what you say; it's how you say it, right? That makes the difference in any type of conversation. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a powerful that's a powerful story. So how do you feel coming out of something like that? Because think about it, like you experience some stuff that I'm sure other people experience, but not everybody experiences, and maybe only few do. But you came to a place where like it's I don't know, like just listening to your story, it's fascinating just to see how far you've come. Like, have you even stopped to kind of celebrate, like kind of where you're at?
I really had never thought about it. I just want to be a really kind person. And I want to be remembered as that. Anyone that talks about my grandma, my mother's mom, just talks about how wonderful and kind and sweet. Nobody ever has anything bad to say about her. And I've always tried to be like, I want to be like
Uh
that. And I'm not. I'm a total mess. I'm chaos walking. But I do put that sentiment in everything I do. And so
yeah, yeah.
I don't think I've really given myself a lot of pause to celebrate that until I guess
Uh
I have a bit. My therapist, I told her a little bit of stuff right at the beginning, and she was like, hold on. I just want you to know that most people who go through stuff like this or have a childhood like this, they're either on drugs or in prison or dead. So you're doing great. You're well adjusted.
huh.
I don't know if all of that's from dealing with it in a healthy way or just disassociating for good chunks of my life. you know, it works out and, balance, I guess. um,
Yeah, for sure. I think I think one thing that's important, and I don't know if you do this, I don't know if you journal or not, but
I
one
don't.
thing that I started doing over the last few years was journal. And why it's helpful is because when if depending on what type of journaling it is, if it's a progress journal or whatever it might be, what it does is sometimes it helps calculate how far you've come because we forget. I'm sure you forget how far you've come to a certain extent. Like you can look back and reflect and be like, oh, I've came a long way, but you probably don't realize that you've probably done growth in the last month or the last couple months or the last year. And sometimes when you journal, you can actually see that play by play where maybe you're having a down day and all of a sudden you're like, you open up your journal and you're like, oh, snap, I've actually, okay, I'm doing well. I don't know. It's just something that if you haven't journaled, it's kind of a fun thing to do because it kind of keeps track for you, which I think is kind of important.
I haven't. My therapist has mentioned that I should multiple occasions. Um, I guess I have like a weird trauma with
Hmm.
it. One time my father like read my diary out loud to me and it was like
Ooh.
it was just really terrible. And so I've never written anything down in any kind of journal or diary ever since then. Um, I do
Mhm.
this little like self-care app. It's called Finch. My kids and I do it together. And there's opportunities to self-reflect on what you did good for the day or how you're feeling and really
Mm.
kind of nail down what feelings you're feeling, whether they're positive or negative and why. And I do that sort of kind of journalism, like journaling within the app. um,
Mhm.
but I've never really looked back. I guess I kind of curious to go back through it now and see you know my progress.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's always something good to look at because, yeah, to your point, like you mentioned, like being able to pause, and sometimes we just forget to pause on just that part of it, that aspect of how far we've come. So, okay, so next question. So, what's the biggest struggle that you made it through?
Gosh, another heavy one. Um, losing my son. Um, when my first baby, David, he died when he was 3 months old. And so that is by far the biggest struggle I've ever been through. Um, really, it makes my childhood feel like nothing. um, but absolutely losing
Mhm.
losing my baby. was the biggest struggle and continues to be the biggest struggle I go through continuously, and I go through day to day, and probably will ever go through in my life as a parent and as a mother. That is by far the hardest thing I think I could ever even think to go through.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So, if you don't mind me asking, so what happened exactly?
Sid's sudden infant death syndrome. He just died.
Uh,
He was 3 months old, and it was my first girls' night out. And I got the call while I was drunk at the bar. So,
oh man.
um, yeah, it was just really terrible. He wasn't unhealthy. It just happens sometimes. They've done a lot of research on SIDS, and the last research I had read up on it, because I like to know reasons. I'm always wanting to know why things happen. Big
Yeah.
about reasons. And from my understanding, the last research paper I've read on it, it's a part in your brainstem that controls the breathe in, breathe out, and it just malfunctions and stops. And then, yeah, that's all there is.
Yeah, I'm one of those people too that I like to know the why, and I can't imagine how it feels not really being able to pinpoint one for something just to happen like that, just so abruptly.
Yeah. But, and then, also carrying the guilt about as a mother of not being there when it happened. You're like, oh, I should have been there. I could have saved him. But again, my mother-in-law,
Uh,
she told me something that helped me not only with his death, but helped me with her death. It helped my husband with her death. It helped my son. She was my son's best friend. And when it's your time, it's your time. And there's nothing that anyone could ever do or say to change it if it's your time to go. If it's your time, it is your time. It doesn't matter if there's doctors, something else will happen. But if it's your time, it's your time. So instead of carrying guilt or thinking what if or anything, I just remember it was his time. There wasn't really a reason. It was just everybody has a time. And unfortunately, he didn't have much, and that was his. So,
yeah. So is that how you made it through that?
I don't know how I made it through it. And that's funny because it's been several years now. He would be 12 this year. His 12th birthday would have been last month. And right after he died, I went to a group therapy session with SIDS Resources. And it's some moms that had just lost their babies, some moms that are a few years in. There was a mom that was 10 years in. And I asked her, I was like, how are you making it through? How did you make it? And she had the same answer for me. She's like, I don't know. You do. You continue to exist, and you make it, and it sucks, but
Uh-huh.
you figure it out and you keep going. And I took this really great class. Now, I'm not religious at this point in my life, but I took this class through a church. A friend, Katie, of mine, we've never been really close, but she really came out of the woodwork when I lost David, and she offered to do my laundry. And I don't remember. I think she did help do a bunch of my laundry, and she took me to this class, and she went to this 12-week course with me. It was called Grief Share. It was through a church, and she went to this 12-week course with me. She picked me up. She took me. And for the first few weeks, I just sat down. I sat with my head down and cried the whole class for it was once a week for 12 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And every week I would sit there and I would just cry. But by the end of the 12 weeks, she wasn't going with me anymore. And I was talking and learning, and I think that really helped a lot. Even if even though I wasn't religious, so I didn't really identify with like the Christianity aspect of, the lessons, it really helped me understand how to deal with my grief in a healthy way and to not let it swallow me. And it really helped me understand my husband's grief because we totally grieved in completely different ways. And so it made me more able to be understanding of how he was dealing with it and that we were dealing with it in different ways and that we were both able to communicate and deal with it in our own ways, but also just make it through it, and support each other how we needed, but also, deal with it in our own. And I had a great support system. My mother, she lost her firstborn baby a few hours after he was born. And so just having my mom be there and helping me through it and knowing that my mom had been through the same thing. And Sid's resources reached out right away and they really, this lady, Pete Potts, she was the person that reached out to everybody. Then she really just kept me afloat. She would check in with me and helped me figure out ways to remember him. And I think a lot of different things helped me make through that struggle. Just a combination of support system and telling myself I was not going to let it make me bitter, that I was not going to allow it to turn me into this bitter person, that I was going to purposely find happiness and not let it just turn me into this sour, sad person. But it had to be on purpose. It would have been very easy to just completely lose myself after that happened. And I'm sure anybody who loses a child can understand that, you just feel lost. And I still struggle with it. And this is still every year during the time from his birthday to the day he died, I really struggle. And I struggle because my doctor that I went to, I was very sick when I was pregnant with him. I had preeclampsia. My blood pressure was very high. I was not healthy at all. I had him 6 weeks early, actually. He ended up being healthy. He just had to grow a little bit. And he had some high bilirubin, but she actually had preeclampsia and she was pregnant along with me. And she was sick the same way I was. She had the same high blood pressure and everything. But she ended up having her baby the day after me. And so every year I see her baby grow up and I don't get to see mine. And so that's a continuous struggle of all the what ifs and who he would have been and how he would have been. And I can't say that, you're like, what helped me make it through that struggle? I can't say I've necessarily made it through that struggle. It's a continuous struggle and it's something I will struggle with my whole life.
Yeah.
But just having a really great support system and having Sid's resources and choosing to have a positive outlook and choosing to find happiness in those darkest moments, I think are the biggest things that helped me get to where I'm at in my struggle and that helped me keep my head above water continuously through it. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like there was, even through that tough time, it sounded like there was a lot of love around you, which I think is really important, right?
Yes.
I think in those moments, because I even think about some of the tough moments I had, and I was so grateful for, the neighbor or the friend or someone that would just be like, hey, just hop in the car, let's go somewhere. And you didn't ask, you didn't do anything. They just came over, they did things, they helped you, they supported you. And it's moments
Mm-hmm.
like that that I reflect on, and I'm just so grateful that there was someone in my life to help me through those times. And it sounds like too, like you have a really good head on your shoulders too. Like it sounds like you were focusing on what you could control. You were, being intentional about who you want to be throughout this. Cause yes, some people just give up, right? And it makes sense. Like going through something that difficult. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some people just gave up, but the fact that you decided you wanted to see it in as positive a way as possible, or at least try to make it through in a good way, like that takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage, and for you to think about too that what your husband was going through. I don't know the statistics offhand, but I know the statistics of couples breaking up after a child, their child passes, is very, very high. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you were both able to grieve and understand each other, I think, is a testament to that too. And I have no doubt that that probably made your relationship even stronger.
I think actually knowing that statistic is why I purposely worked so hard to not let it like destroy us and tear us apart, is because somebody had told me that statistic and I was like, well, that's not
Yeah.
going to be us.
Uh,
Maybe it was a little bit of stubbornness along with it, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't imagine going through something like that, but I'm proud of you for getting through it the way you did. That's impressive by any feat for sure. Okay. So, next question. So, what are you currently going through that's positive or negative, you could say?
I guess just navigating life, being a stay-at-home mom, navigating being a good mom and um, a good parent. I would say that's the biggest thing I'm going through, you know, as far as that. Constantly trying to grow, whether it be figuring out what I'm doing next, or being a better friend, or learning how to be a better person or be a good parent. Um, After losing David, when I had my son, I was just, I'm going to be the best mom I can be, because you do realize how fleeting life is. And, that I just, my children are my everything. And so my
Uh-huh.
entire life, my entire world revolves around them. And so I think just the biggest thing I'm going through is just being a mom and trying to be a good mom. I have a really great mom that she's always very kind and patient. And I think having her to look up to is a big, solid help. My sister is like a really, really
Uh-huh.
wonderful mom. And, looking up to her and letting her guide me and just paying attention to other good qualities in moms. And I'm like, I like that they do that. I am going to learn to do that as well. Um, but that's just the biggest thing, is just being a mom and trying to be the best mom I could possibly be, and trying to not lose my sense of self in the process. It's easy to lose,
Uh-huh.
especially when you're a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom. It's totally easy to lose your identity of who you are. You're not really mom, or you're not really Tiffany, your mom or wife, and so trying to
Uh-huh.
be a good wife and a good mom, the best mom I can be, but also trying to do things that are important to me, like Highland Games. Uh,
Uh-huh.
that it's difficult, but I wouldn't say it's really negative. It's just, it's hard to balance being yourself and a mother, um, especially when you're committed to just pouring everything into your kids. But I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
change it for the world. Or Really cool kids.
Really cool kids. Yeah. What are they into?
Oh, what are they into? Daisy, my little feral little flower. She likes to color and paint. They're really big into going to the park right now. We've been going to the park almost every day after school and just playing and coloring with the chalk. My son he's big into, he likes Fortnite, but he's really good at math. He's he's very fast at math, and he's just very intelligent. He soaks
Mhm.
everything up. He's like a little sponge. He's just really good at learning, and he's very curious, and he's really good at learning how things work and why things work and fixing things. And he's surrounded by, my husband, who's really good at fixing things and teaching
Mhm.
things, and my father-in-law, who's really good at fixing things and teaching things. But they're kids, so they're not really into anything for any length of time to be of note, I guess. They're
Yep.
constantly changing and into something different. My daughter's learning to read and tie her shoes, and yeah, my son's learning to not talk so much in class. He gets that from me.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that. I used to talk too much in class too.
God, I've always been a talker, and that's something I've tried to get better at, but that's always going to be a struggle.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned too, you mentioned Highland Games, and I haven't even asked this yet. So what got you into Highland Games?
Um, Chip, who was on your podcast before, we've been friends since high school, and he started doing it, and I was like, that looks like so much fun. That that really, because we used to play D&D together and stuff. And so I was like, that looks like so much fun. I want to try. And he was like, it is fun. You should try. You should try it. So I was like, all right, I will. And I tried it. I went down there for D&D, and Tom, who also does Highland Games, he's just an incredible person and world record breaker. He trains Chip, and after D&D, we went and trained at Tom's house, and I was like, this is so much fun. I've never really done a sport. I did like
Mhm.
private school gymnastics, which was like, I wouldn't really count that. I did, it was, I think, for a year, and it's like not what you think of when you think of like Olympics gymnastics. It's weird. Uh, and then um, I did volleyball a little bit, but I've never really done a sport like seriously before. I've never trained for practice for a sport, or I didn't do anything competitive. I'm not a competitive person. So I'm not in it for the competition aspect of it. I think it's fun. It's very therapeutic. I can throw heavy things.
Mhm.
I just really enjoy it. And but yeah, Chip got me into it. He said, I told him it looked fun, and told me to try it, and I did. And so much fun.
Yeah, it is a blast. I enjoy it a lot because I met him just at the Renaissance Festival one year. Was it last year? Yeah, last year I think. And I was just throwing the stone toss. And I beat him at stone toss. I didn't know who Chip was at that time, but I remember him being super friendly and was like kept shaking my hand and saying great job or whatever. And I was like, this guy's cool. And then I just remember connecting with him later on social because he commented on a post, and I was like, hey man, and then all of a sudden it turned into this relationship. And yeah, yeah, we were just like, I was like, hey, I'd love to do Highland Games. Do you want to be on my podcast? And we had this whole I guess exchange of goods, you could say, right? So it's like, okay, like you be on the podcast because I'm sure you got some cool stuff to share. And then he's like, yeah, and I'll train you for the Highland Games. And then, yeah, when I went to that last event, I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is way too cool. So I've literally been doing nothing since then. But say like, hey, have you done the Highland Games? You should do it. I think I have someone that's going to join us in June at Tom's. He's
Fun.
never done it before. I was like, you don't even need to do it. You just show
No,
up.
Tom's is great for that. The
Show up in the
backyard
beginner
games.
class. Just have fun.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. So I got a guy coming there. I think I've talked my parents maybe into doing it. We'll have to see. They might do it. But yeah, it just becomes one of those things because it was so much fun. It was fun to
Mhm.
compete, and it was fun just to yeah, just to lift heavy things, throw things, and just after you're done, be like, yes, I feel like I have done something.
And it's a
It's
fun
just nice.
environment. It's it's a very fun environment. All the people are really nice. You can just hit it off with pretty much everybody there. Everybody's super welcoming and nice and
Uh-huh.
good about like, hey, if you want to do better, do this. I think it's a really cool little community that we're getting into. It's just a lot of neat people.
I agree. Totally agree. And I've done way too much research on my family heritage now since I started the Highland Games. so,
Are you
so I've looked
Irish?
up
Is
like my
that
last name, what kilt color. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. So McDowell, that's my last name. So it's Scottish slash, I guess Irish too, both of them. So if you go far enough back, I found out exactly what my kilt color is supposed to be for my family. I found my family motto, all this stuff. So I'm like gonna go. I'm like wanting to get it like the crest on my kilt. I'm going all out. It's wild.
awesome? Is the kilt you have like your family plate or whatever?
No, it's not because I just bought a generic kilt because I just assumed green was like the main color to go with. And then after looking it up, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be baby blue, and I can't find a baby blue kilt at all. So I
Have
might
you
have
looked
to
on
have somebody
Sport
make
Kilt?
one if I want to actually. No, should I?
Yes. Yes. Sport Kilt is
Okay,
where
I
like
will
most
because I've
everybody
only checked
goes.
Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Go to Sport Kilt and then you can modify it. You can
Okay,
like I have pockets in mine. um, but you can they have a bunch of different uh colors and color combinations and they have the biggest like selection. That's where I think most everybody goes to get theirs.
check it out for sure. So, are you Irish or Scottish?
Um, I believe now I haven't done a lot of research on that side of my family. It's my father's side, but my last name was McMillan, and that's Scottish Irish. I believe it was of original Scottish descent, and then we ended up going to Ireland and then here. Um, but I haven't done a lot of research. I don't know. Yes, but how much? I don't know.
You should look that up. I think that's pretty cool because it sounds like your family journey was similar to mine then because I think it was Scottish to Irish then to America. And I'd love to know what your family motto is because I looked up my motto and I thought that was the coolest thing.
What was your family motto?
So family motto, well, it's all Latin. I don't remember the Latin phrase, but basically it was to conquer or die. So it sounds competitive and a little extreme, but I thought that was kind of cool. Like, oh, okay, okay. So I'm curious what yours is because I'll bet you could Google it and totally find out like exactly what your family motto is.
Yeah, I'll have to Google it now. I have no idea. I don't really talk
Okay.
to any of that side of the family for obvious reasons. And
Mm, got
so
it.
I don't know. I've never really, picked their brains about our family history of any sort.
Yeah, I'm actually guilty of doing that today. I had I had a meeting at work with a coworker, and for some weird reason, we got on topic of Highland Games, and I was like, "Where are you from?" And he's like, "Well, and he wasn't from Ireland or anywhere like that, but somewhere over in Europe." And I was like, "Let's look up your last name," and sure enough, his last name has also a clan motto, and I'm like, I wonder if everybody's last name has a clan motto of some type. I'm curious.
Yeah, I have to know now. I'm curious what mine is. Yours is funny, like no pressure at all to like succeed. Conquer or
Yeah.
die, right?
Yeah, it's either I gotta win or I might as well be dead. And I'm like, that's crazy.
You know what? I
Uh,
guess I'm trying to live by your family motto with the Highlands Games stuff recently. So I'm either gonna beat world records, I'm gonna
oh, tell
kill myself trying.
yeah, tell the audience what happened.
So last night I got this new sheath bag and I've been trying to break it in, and I'm having a really tough time breaking it in. And so uh actually last night's little fiasco wasn't even the first injury I've had this week from my pitchfork. Um I was breaking in my new sheath bag last week and I pushed down on it and I didn't realize where my ankle was and I just sent it right down. I like punctured myself and put it down into my ankle a little bit. Um and that didn't really hurt. It was bruised a little bit, but it just went right in, just a little flesh wound. But last night I was like, well, I know my sheath bag is still really tight on my pitchfork, but I just want to try to throw anyways. And maybe throwing it will help loosen it up a little. So I really wound up, and you get those few wind ups going. And on my big, huge swing, I got my knee. And I didn't feel it. I heard my pants rip. And I was like, no, my pants. And I looked down at the rip in my pants and was like, my knee. And so I immediately, I just pinched it together and I was like, I need to go get stitches. And hollered over to my husband, and his cousin lives with us, and my kids. And he was inside, but everybody else was outside. And so it's just like, I need stitches. I need stitches. And my son went and got me his Crocs, and we went to the hospital, and I had to get 3 stitches in my knee. I made it through all of my skin. So they sewed me back together. I've
That's
never had
wild.
stitches before, so that was an interesting experience, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Really? So I have a funny story that kind of reminds me of that, although it wasn't a pitchfork. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this story online. So here we go. So have fun.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as can be. So what happened is I think I had been married like 2 years maybe. And what I was doing is I was cooking steak and I was cutting meat with this big knife, just having fun. And for some weird reason, uh, I was doing this thing at work where I like to throw scissors and knives and stuff and catch it.
Oh
Like it was just
no.
some weird thing that I just thought was fun. So she walks in, and of course me like just being a goofball trying to like impress her, like, oh, watch this. And I throw this knife and I catch it by the handle and I'm throwing it like all these crazy ways and catching it. And she's just like, stop, stop, stop. And I'm like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And I'm just laughing at her because like I know I can do it. And then I decide to like just really chuck it and like get a really good spin on it. And it started falling right when I went to grab it. I was like, oh, I'm going to grab the blade. And for some reason, subconsciously, I tried to catch it with my leg.
Oh
So
no.
it was just subconscious, like, oh, it's going to hit the ground. So I put my leg out there and
Yeah.
it got me in the leg and then fell down on the ground. And then I just played it off like, oh, that was no big deal. That's funny. And went back to, cleaned it off and went back to cutting. And then I was like, okay, something feels a little strange. And then I was like, well, I need to use the restroom. So I just walked to the restroom, played it all cool, like nothing happened. And I go back there and there's a trail of blood leading to the bathroom. And I look over and like, yeah, like I literally like had a big gash like right out of my shin. And yeah, I probably needed stitches, but I was too stubborn to get them. So I was like, okay, well, so I did cut myself, but we couldn't tell because I was wearing pants at the time. And so I showed her, she's like, oh my gosh, Ricky. And I'm like, yep, I'm sorry. Do we have alcohol? No. Okay. So we have nothing to clean it with. Well, do we have Band-Aids? Nope. Okay. Well, let's go to the store. So, so we go to the store and I'm trying to walk in the store and I'm trying not to, let it bleed or whatever it's doing. And we got some butterfly bandages. And yeah, that wound is funny. I should have got stitches, but I didn't. And it took a long time to heal.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, that was one of those funny, just random stories where it's like I was showing off and then decided to go a little above what I was capable of. And I paid the price by trying to catch a knife with my foot.
I've
So
absolutely done that on my one wheel. I told my husband, hey, watch this, and flipped it over, crashed it, and like sprained my entire. And he still makes fun of me for that. He'll be like, hey, watch this. Like, look what I can
Yeah, see,
do.
some of us like to show off a little bit.
I have not done that since, because
That's so
I'm
good.
usually a very cautious person. I don't push the boundaries,
Mhm.
or I'm the type of person that will sit at a stoplight when no one else is there. You know? So for me to be like, oh, watch this, I really don't ever do that. And I learned my lesson that time. I haven't done it ever since.
Yeah. I can't say that I haven't thrown knives since, but I haven't done anything that ridiculous.
You didn't catch it with your leg
So,
anymore, at least.
so I didn't catch it with my leg anymore. And it's funny because it was literally a reflex that I had from work, because we used to have these handheld devices at work. And if you drop them and they break, like it's a bad thing. So that was where the reflex came in, is because I drop those sometimes and I'd catch it with my foot to
Yeah.
absorb some of the
I mean, don't we
impact.
all
So
do
yeah, it
that
was
with our
literally just a
phones and
work
stuff?
reflex.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. So that's my fun story for the day. So, okay. So next question. So who has changed your life that doesn't know it?
I thought about this one a lot, and I really struggled with it because a lot of people have changed my life, but I think they all know it. Um, I've been very vocal to my support system and grateful um, to those people. And so, really, I mean, a lot of people have changed my life. My teacher, my third and fourth grade teacher, Miss Shibo, she really helped shape who I am as a person, and her just never ending patience and kindness. And she was just such a light in my life during such a dark time. And she didn't even know that all that stuff was going on until later.
Mm.
But I've told her since then, and I've thanked her for that. And just the other people who helped support me when I lost David, all those people, too many to mention, that came out of the woodwork when I lost David, my mother, my sister, my friends, I think my mother-in-law, maybe, maybe her. And I think the only reason she doesn't know it is because she's not here anymore. Um,
Uh,
but so many different people have changed my life and impacted me. And I'm really a sponge and soak up. I like to watch people and learn, and to not mimic as in copy them, but to learn from
mhm.
them and try to be that in my own life, and, do those things in my own life. And so I have a lot of people who have really impacted me, but I think everyone of note that I can think of, I've luckily been able to communicate that to those people. And they all know that they've made a huge difference in my life. And, um, but I don't really know. Maybe my sister. She's made a huge difference in my life. She's one of my very best friends. She's 7 years older than me, and we fought like cats and dogs when we were kids. But um, she, we're each other's best friend, and um, she's helped shape who I am as a person, who I am as a mother. Um, and maybe she doesn't realize that. Maybe she doesn't realize how much of an impact she's made on my life. But I mean, she should, because we talk like every day. So, Michelle, when you listen, yeah, maybe my sister, I guess.
That's
She
sweet.
might not
That's
realize it, but that's probably because she has some of the same traumas that I do, as in, um, we don't really pause to pat ourselves on the back on where we're at or how far we've made it or the impact we've made on other people. So maybe, I guess that'll be a little shout out to my sister. I think she's probably the person who's impacted me the most, but she probably doesn't realize how much she's impacted me as a person.
That's sweet. Yeah. I like this question because, well, unlike you, who has told most people how much they've impacted you, I did not for the longest time. And that's actually why I made this question, was because I realized, like, not until the last few years have I really like acknowledged those people or like really thanked people for the impact they had. But so yeah, that's why I did that, because yeah, some of the people, and I always tell the coach story because there's a coach of mine that I remember impacted me in a really positive way. And yeah, I don't think I ever told him. I tried to get him on the podcast, but we had scheduling conflicts. But I need to get him on the podcast so I can tell him,
You have
because
to tell them.
yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, it's important for people to know the impact that they've made, because yeah, a lot of times we don't know. Because I mean, I've said this too. Like, out of out of everybody that you've impacted in your life, you will probably only hear from 2% of those, right?
Yeah.
Only 2% will probably tell you, right? Because we just don't think about it. And I think it's always nice when when someone is able to share that, because then it knows that we're kind of in the right direction, or we're doing something positive.
Mm-hmm. And that teacher that I spoke about, Miss Shibo, her and I are still friends to this day. I actually sent her some funny little things she had written on my report cards that I found not too long ago. But I told her, I don't remember when it was, maybe it was a few years ago. I told her, that she really was just such a light in my life during such an awful time. And she really, I don't think I realized then how much she was shaping me and how much she was keeping me afloat. But now looking back, I realized that. And I told her that. And she, she was a new teacher back then. She didn't even realize, the impact she was making. And so she really thanked me for letting her know, what a big impact she had made on me. What a big, how much I've still continued to just look forward, or look, not forward. How much I still continue to look up to her to this day.
That's cool. That's awesome that you're still friends.
Yeah. I still have to call her Miss Shibo, though. I can't call her by her first name. She's told me I can, but it's weird. I can't do it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. So, what's a skill or talent that you could share with us?
I guess Highland Games is a skill I am learning. I'm not great at it, but I'm doing pretty well for just starting out and only doing one competition. I guess I like to hula hoop, and not a lot of people know that. I can do all kinds of cool tricks with a hula hoop.
Really? Can you show us right now?
I don't have a hula hoop on me.
Okay.
But I'm a very medium person, so I'm not great at it by any means, but it is a weird little talent I have. Yeah. Like, nobody really knows about from my festival era, when I would go to festivals and when I was being a hippie for a while. I learned how to hula hoop and do a lot of tricks. Yeah. It's a weird little fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I got to see that, because I can hula hoop, but not well. So I'm actually curious if I could still hula hoop. I used to be able to do it okay, but just the standard hula hoop. I couldn't do any tricks. But I have a feeling, I don't know. I'd have to see. I don't know if I can move my body like that anymore when it comes to hula hooping. It's been so long.
Yeah. Watch a YouTube video, you'll be fine. 2 YouTube videos and you're professional, right?
You know what? That's true. That's true. I just need to go buy a hula hoop. I need to practice.
Yeah, that's right. You gotta learn it. Then you won't just be doing Highland Games competition. You can be a professional hula hooper.
Hey, that would be. Yeah, I'm sure there's such a thing, but I've never witnessed it.
Yeah, I have some friends who, hula hoop in the circus. Friends from back in the day who hula hoop in the circus. Another friend who has a business. that she does fire hooping and all kinds of fire stuff and bubbles and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So yeah, you can absolutely make money with it.
Okay. I don't know. We'll see. That might be something I dig into. I'm not sure. Okay. So what is something you're learning about currently that you could teach us?
Hmm. I'm learning about a lot of things all the time. I am a dabbler. I like to dabble in lots of different things. I think that just comes with
Mhm.
the ADHD territory, can't focus on any one thing for too long. Right now I guess I'm learning Highland Games, and just practicing all of that. I don't know that I could necessarily teach you anything. Um, but I'm learning all that. I am learning on a deeper level, I suppose I am learning to control my with ADHD comes typically, not with everybody obviously, but typically comes a very explosive temper. People with ADHD really struggle with impulse control and explosive emotions and just controlling their emotion. Like sometimes our emotions feel like too big for our body. And
Mhm.
so just learning to control my emotions and be more level headed and to speak with reason and logic and not just emotion. And I am learning to not just pop off, if I am mad at something. And I think as far as teaching people, it's not really something you can teach. It's a skill you develop over time, but being conscious of yourself and how you are talking to people, I think is a huge aspect of it. Just being mindful and practicing controlling your temper when you feel that explosive,
So,
allowing yourself to just let it go, and not keep it and hang
mhm.
on to it and focus on it. And then also just taking accountability. Like when you do lose your temper, and for people who struggle with explosive emotions, not just like if you catch yourself yelling in the moment, you're not going to catch yourself every time. And sometimes you're going to have to go back and be like, hey, I was out of control and I'm so sorry. You know? But
Mhm.
sometimes you do catch
Yeah.
yourself in that moment. And so I think a lot of it is holding yourself accountable and catching yourself and being able to pause and be like, I don't like how I'm acting. Let me pause, take a couple seconds and redirect myself. Um, that's as far as controlling me learning to control those explosive emotions and what I can teach people on how to control those things. It's really self accountability and patience with yourself and practice and practice and practice and practice. With anything you want to get good
Yeah.
at, you always have to have practice. And that especially, you just have to practice it in the moment, after the moment. You have to think about it ahead of time. You have to be very conscious in choosing to not allow them to take over, which sometimes I fail and sometimes I lose my cool. And, I think everybody's guilty of that to different extents. But, being able to hold
Mhm.
yourself accountable, I think, is a huge aspect of learning to control um, anything in your life, anything you want to change about yourself.
Yeah, it's always about practice and investment. It's stuff takes a long time. It's like incremental shifts, right? And that's what leads to long-term, change essentially. But
Absolutely.
have you noticed that like is there anything that triggers you as far as like you have like do you have a certain thing that you're like this is what like anytime this happens, this is when the anger comes. Do you have anything like that?
Yes, I didn't realize it. And I wouldn't go so far as to say I am autistic, but there was one day I saw something on, TikTok and uh I went down the rabbit hole of that, and I took the test, and I scored high on every aspect of it. But like I said earlier, I really like to know reasons. So then I was able to really, whether it's autism or ADHD, I started digging into the reasons of things. And I realized a lot of times when I was getting angry, I wasn't really mad at anything. It was more of, um, I was overstimulated and overwhelmed. When I'm very overwhelmed,
Oh.
there's a lot of noise. It's too hot. My legs are hot. I'm in a very noisy place. I'm stressed out because there's a lot of people. And when I get in those anxious situations, I was just losing my temper and flying off the handle. But now that I know, like, hey, I'm just overwhelmed, it really makes it a lot easier to understanding the reason makes it a lot easier to be mindful of controlling it. So I think it is important to figure out those things that trigger you. Me understanding that, you know, when I'm overwhelmed or really anxious or overstimulated, like with a lot of loud noise and everything, or like for some reason air blowing in my face just makes me like mad at the world. Blow a fan on me and you might see a bad side of me. But, just understanding that I'm not really mad. I'm just hot. I'm not really mad. It's just really loud everywhere, and being able to like, okay, let me put in some headphones, or let me turn down the volume, or hey kids, I'm getting really frustrated because you guys are being really loud and it's really overwhelming. I need you to turn your volume down. Like, you can still talk, but you have to turn your volume down and bring it down. And just recognizing those moments of, I'm overwhelmed. And yeah, I think that's my biggest triggers, stuff, problem. I guess that goes back to the last one of the other questions of how is it still impacting me, growing up the way I did and going through a lot of the things I did really gave me a lot of these struggles of, anxiety or getting really overwhelmed or things, and just being able to be conscious about those things causing me to feel really like angry and upset, and being able to recognize in the moment, this is what sets me off and this is how I can fix it, and, take control back to feel like I'm not so overwhelmed or anxious or, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. I'm glad you know what your triggers are. A lot of people don't know their triggers, and that's why it's really hard for them to actually solve whatever's going on because they haven't realized what's actually causing it in the first place. So it's good that you figured that out. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think my mind just runs a mile a minute, and I think constantly. I overthink constantly, and that can sometimes be a blessing in self-growth if you are constantly, thinking about yourself or what you did wrong or what you could have done different. You're gonna grow because you're thinking about it.
Agreed. Okay. So what are you doing for fun?
Um, Highland Games, I guess, is my fun thing right now. I now have all of my implements at my house. Um, and I have like the weight for high implement, and I have a lot of land, and I cut a tree down and made my own caber. And so I do that for fun most of the time. I lift. I love going to the gym. I say I love going to the gym. Some days I hate it, but it really helps me feel better. So I love it and I hate it. That is fun, but not for fun, but it can be for fun. And then I love to read. I just love to read. I read all the time. I'm always reading two,
Okay. What's
three,
your
four
what's your
books.
book you read?
Um, right now,
What book are you reading? Yeah.
ooh.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen that clip where it's like a lot of people are going to have to get really cool about a lot of things really quickly? um,
Okay.
I I'm reading several books right now. I'm reading a book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. It is called Tower of Dawn. It's my least favorite book in the series. But it's such a beautiful series, and it's a beautiful journey. It's high fantasy, and it has a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of really cool character growth. My all-time favorite book is The Secret Garden, and it is tied with The Little Princess. And I listen to those books on repeat all the time. I listen to them when I go to sleep. I listen to them just in the background when I'm cooking. It's usually what comes on when I'm getting the car, and like people have their comfort TV shows like Friends or, whatever. And I have comfort books. So I have those two books. And then I also really like some dark fantasy romance, and I am not going to share those titles that I am reading, but
Okay.
they're really good.
See, I had a feeling we were going to get there. I've had a feeling when you were like, I had a feeling. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I'm not going to share those titles, but they are good. And if you go into Dark Book Talk, I'm sure anyone can find a lot of the stuff I read. And to all of my friends and family watching this, you didn't know that.
Okay, so now are you an audiobook person or a reader or both?
Both. Initially, I have always
Okay.
been a reader, and I think that started as a child. Just my childhood, I read all the time, anything and everything. And everything I watched or listened to on the radio, all my TV, everything was policed very strictly. So I could only watch Christian shows or old TV shows. I could only um, listen to Christian music. Uh, so, but nobody ever asked what I was reading. Um, so I could just read whatever I wanted besides Harry Potter because it was famous for having witchcraft and it was, for the devil. But now I love Harry Potter. I read it as an adult. So I grew up just reading books. And then, I'm a mom now. I'm busy all the time. I don't really have time to stop and read a book and bury my nose in a book. So I pop in an audiobook and I listen to my books while I clean and do my chores and my laundry and my gardening and everything else. But I like to read and I enjoy reading. And if I'm by myself, just sitting down, and if I feel like I have time, I'll pick up a book and read. But for the most part, I guess at this point, audiobooks. But I enjoy both.
So we only have a few questions left. So
Okay.
this one is one of my favorites. So, and you've kind of already told me this one offline, which cracks me up because you're the only person that's told me this. Usually it's an in the moment thing. So it's been funny because so whatever you pick, I'm just like, oh, it's all good, whatever you want. So the question is, if you were to have a story uh, of your life, essentially from when you were born to now, what would that story be called?
Oh, okay. um, well, initially, my thought, because I have kind of a dark sense of humor, and we touched on some of the things I've gone through, but I've gone through a lot of things and I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot of people. And so initially, my idea was that's enough slices. I don't know if you've seen that clip on the internet where they're cutting a pizza, and they just keep cutting it. And the kid's like, that's enough slices. And then they keep cutting it. And he's like, that's enough slices, and
Yeah,
it's just like, that's enough
yeah.
slices. Because I always kind of feel like I'm in a state of chaos and panic. I told my therapist one time that I wasn't stressed out, and she, in her most serious voice, I love her so much. In her most serious voice, she was like, Tiffany, I don't think you even understand what it is to not be stressed. I don't think you've ever not been stressed. So initially I thought that's enough slices. But, when you stop and take a step back and think about it, I have a good life. And I don't want that to be, it's funny, but I don't want that to be people's initial, what their takeaway from me. I'm not fed up with everything all the time, only sometimes. Um, so my sister and I were talking today, and we were shooting things back and forth, and we decided on a work in progress, because I am very much a work in progress. I am constantly trying to better myself and learn and try to become who I want to be and who I need to be for other people. I try to be really supportive to other people, and I kind of gravitate towards people who might be struggling because I know what it is and I don't want them to feel alone. I want to help. I always want to help. I love to be helpful. One of the things that my teacher had written in my report card that I sent to her that I think is funny, that I still haven't figured out, is that I need to learn to help myself and focus on helping myself before I help other people and devote my time and energy towards other people. I need to take care of myself first. And I told her at 34, I still haven't figured that out. But I am constantly a work in progress. I'm constantly trying to better myself, better other people, better other people's lives, better my lives. And so I think just, a work in progress beautifully wraps up my entire goal of my existence, which is just growing and learning and being a good person and being a person that people are going to look back on and be like, she was a really great person. She was a really kind, thoughtful, loving person. Because I don't want to make a huge impact on the world. I don't need to make a huge impact on the world. I don't feel the need to feel known or recognized or celebrated. I just want to make small differences in people's lives. Because sometimes it's the small moments that make up the big things. All the small things add up to big things, and so, and that's also how I got through, learning how to navigate my trauma from childhood and losing my son, and everything is just, sometimes there aren't big happy things to look at, and there aren't big things. It's small things that add up to big things. And so being that person that sprinkles those small things everywhere is really important to who I am as an individual. And that's the legacy I'm leaving. And so just constantly working on that and working on leaving that legacy for everybody, and my kids. And
yeah, I could see that about you already. I only met you once, and I could already tell, like, I got those vibes from you, like, right away. Like, just, I could tell that you were caring, thoughtful, kind, even like the small things, like, um, just the way, like, I mean, I was there with Chip or whatever. Like, you introduced yourself. You seemed like you were there all the time. You need anything? I can help, And I'm just like, I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Like, it's really sweet. So I can see that about you. Like, and I think that's the thing too, is I gravitate towards authentic people. And I can tell, like, I feel like I can read when people are authentic, and like exactly what you said was exactly what I saw. So that was, yeah. So keep doing that, because
good. I'm trying.
it's very refreshing. It's very refreshing. I really enjoy it.
Thanks.
And then two, I feel like we're all work in progresses. Nobody has it figured out. It's funny because we think a lot of times we think they have it figured out and we don't. But the thing is, and nobody has it figured out. We're all figuring out together. And it's funny that you said work in progress, because that's something that I've told people multiple times. Like, yeah, we're all just works in progress, and I think we need to realize that, because I think we get upset at people sometimes because they shouldn't do this or they're not here. And it's like, well, we're all figuring it out. We're all, do you have it figured out? No. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. They don't have it figured out either.
And if something a lady I grew up with in church said to me when I was younger, If you think somebody has it figured out and has it all together, you probably just don't know them that well. Nobody has it together. Sometimes people are better than other people at appearing like they have it all together.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like a lot of people in my life have no idea that I went through a lot of the things we talked about today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you look at other people and you think they have it all together, chances are they don't. You just don't know them that well.
I totally agree. Okay. So we got 2 questions left. So this one is just going to be if there's anything else you want to share with the audience. This is also the time if you want to share, how people can connect with you. If you have any businesses, projects you're working on, this is kind of like your time to shine if you want to take it.
I have nothing. I guess I am Tiffany Lee on Facebook. If anybody feels the need to reach out or connect, or if they need help or guidance, I'm happy to be an ear or lend support where I can. If I have struggles that they can relate to when they need to. I'm hoping to start a business soon, but I haven't quite gotten there yet, so I don't really have anything to plug yet. Unless anybody is moving and needs their house cleaned, I would love to do that. So I can get my business off and running, but I haven't really had time to put anything in that. I don't really have anything to plug or anything cool.
It's fair enough. We've had some people take this time to do things, and some people are like, "No, I'm good. Next question." It's
Yeah,
like,
I don't
okay,
really
fair.
have anything.
Okay. Okay. Sweet. Okay. So here we go. One of my other favorite parts of the podcast. So this is where you get to answer a guest question from the last podcast that you don't know. I didn't give it to you, so it's a surprise. And then you get to create a question for the next guest.
Yes.
So your question is, if money wasn't an issue, where would you build your house?
I would find a mountain and I would find a beautiful forest and build the cutest little, witchiest little cottage that looked hobbled together. But it's not really a specific place. The question was a place. Where would you?
Yeah, just where would you build your house?
So I don't have a specific place, but somewhere beautiful with really big old trees and water, but it would have to be warm.
Mm.
I don't want to have to
Okay,
be
so
cold.
warm water, so like a hot springs of some type.
Yeah, maybe a hot springs, or I've never been to California. I would imagine that it's warm and they have big trees and water. I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
place on earth that has everything I'm looking for. I've never really thought
Yeah.
about where. I've never really thought about leaving where I am because all my people are here. Um, but I guess if money wasn't an object, I could just bring them with me. So I don't know, a forest with big old trees, because this is a really silly thing to say, so humor me. Trees are just, especially old trees, are so wise and comforting, and they know so many things, and you can unload so many secrets, like within the trees and within the forest, and so many burdens. I think that would be the most peaceful and comforting place I could ever possibly think to build a house, with really big old trees. But it would have to be warm.
Okay. Fair. Deal. It sounds like you need to write a book. Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I have not. I just read. I'm not a writer. I'm just a reader.
Just read, not a writer?
Yeah.
Well, you set a good tone here. Like I could imagine that being the beginning of some fairy tale where you're just like, here's the setting, and you have the mountaintop, you have the forest with the old trees, a house that's cobbled together. Like I could
That
see
just
that.
tells you I have my nose in way too many fantasy books all the time.
Maybe.
Uh, I
That's
just live
fair.
in a fantasy world to
Okay.
deal with everything, you know.
That's fair. Okay. So then what question do you want to leave the next guest?
Okay, so mine is not so much of a superficial question. Mine is, as far
Okay.
as a work in progress, mine is about growth and it's on more of a deeper level, but it doesn't really have to be a deeper level. What are some small things you do in your day to day life that you do? What are some small things that you do day to day that make a big difference in your life or who you are as a person?
Okay, how would you answer this?
I came prepared for this one. um, I think to me, the biggest thing or the small things that I do, and I ask this because of my small things that I do. I heard a very powerful, I watched this documentary called Seaspiracy, and there was something, a quote in it. I can't remember who said it, but it really resonated with me. Everyone, and I might get it backwards, but you'll get the sentiment of it. Everyone can't do something, but
Mhm.
someone can do everything. Or no, you know what I mean. Someone can't do everything, but everyone can do something. You might
Yep.
not be able to make a big change in the world, but you can do small things that are going to change your world or leave a lasting impression. So for me, the small things that I do in my day-to-day life that make a big difference in my life or maybe other people's lives, I don't know, um, is that I purposely look for the small moments. I purposely find joy in small little things that are trivial because especially for people who have a hard life or are going through a lot, you're not going to have all these big, fantastic, beautiful things to look forward to, or big things aren't always happening. And if you're looking for your happiness or your peace in big things and big moments, chances are you're going to miss it and you're not going to find it. But if you are purposely searching out small moments and small beauties in the world, my first small, when my son died, I really feel like you're just never going to be happy again. Your whole world just ends. And I remember my first small moment after he died. I was sitting at my in law's house by the pond, and I was just sitting by myself, just bawling my eyes out. And I looked over and I noticed all these little, they might have been butterflies, they might have been moths. I don't know. I'm not a biologist, but they were so tiny and cute and they were just so little. And it was just a bunch of little babies all flurrying. And I was just like, that's so beautiful. And it brought me just a small little tiny sliver of peace. And I noticed that I did that. And I noticed that I found that little tiny small happiness. Another one was we went to our friend's house and he made a joke and I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed since my son had died. And I was like, I'm going to hold on to this, just a little joke. And so it's just a small moment and small little things, noticing, looking out the window and being like, that's such a cute tree. Like, how cute is that tree? Or looking at someone's shoes or their outfit or how put together they are. And, telling them like, oh my gosh, you have such nice skin or you have such nice hair, or handing out little compliments like candy. To me, they might be small, but to somebody else, they could be having a terrible day and they needed somebody to tell them like, you're doing great, or this is
Mhm.
great about you. Or it's just small moments and small noticing little things, noticing the small little things. So, I mean, that question is translated very literally into my life. It's not, a small daily habit like waking up and brushing my teeth and having my coffee, which that might be for some people because that's where they find it, because that's what makes their big difference. But for me, the small things that make the biggest difference in my life is noticing the small beauties in the world and appreciating them in that moment, because you're not always going to have these big, beautiful, wonderful moments. Sometimes your life's going to be dark and heavy. And the only thing that's going to be able to keep you afloat is finding those small moments and those small little beauties in the world. Because even on the rainiest, most terrible weather day, which I love rain and thunderstorms and stuff, I think the beauty and chaos of it is just, it's wonderful. But even on those days, or on the darkest night, or, the darkest night, I love night. It might be dark and spooky for some, but if you look up the stars and finding the beauty in the moon and the beauty in the stars, and or just sitting here in my parents' home and seeing all the little pretty little things my mom has done to bring it together, and like how pretty their little antiques are all over the place. It's the small things and noticing the small things that make a huge impact in your life or somebody else's life, and letting them know the small things that you noticed. It makes a huge difference in my life and in how I am able to be a happy person and find peace and joy, even with all the stuff I've been through. And just not letting those define me, just choosing to find those small things and to hang on to them and to notice them.
Yeah. Sounds like it helps you to be present.
It does. It does. Well, because even on like your
Uh-huh.
worst day, you can be having the most awful, terrible day, but you could still look out your window and see a really cute squirrel. And that's cool.
Uh-huh.
You could really still, you know, look at, whatever, or you could still sit on the couch and be like, wow, this is a really soft couch. This feels really nice. Like it's just
Uh-huh.
keeps you grounded. You can't always have those big things. You have to take those small wins and keep them for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, there's something about that too, especially for us that think a lot, especially in those moments too, right? When there's tragedy, I mean, you're just living in your brain essentially, and we're battling so much, but it's all in imagination, right? It's stuff that isn't even happening. It's right. It's the thought of the things that are happening or the anxieties you're going with, and then the moment you can, yeah, to your point, notice like, hey, look at that. You've literally just became present like that, and there's something special about that because you can't really feel those things if you are present, right? Like when you're present, it's like that's where the peace and the stillness comes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I like
And
that.
it's funny, it ties
Very
together with
wise.
actually a really helpful way to manage anxiety is you do 5 small things, what you go through all your senses to become present again, to get through an anxiety attack. What
Mm,
are, or
yep.
3, I usually do 3. What are 3 things I can feel, different textures, and 3 different things what are, think of a color, what are 3 red things,
Uh-huh.
it's, even when it comes to managing anxiety and stuff, those small moments matter. Noticing those small moments, it does help you ground you in the present. And especially when your feelings are just feeling too big for your body.
Oh, I know. Well, this has been great. So that was the whole thing. It wasn't so bad, right?
It wasn't so bad. I feel like a lot of people are going to learn a lot of new things. um,
Yeah.
so
Well, I'm very happy that you decided to be on the podcast. So I think, to your point, I think you have such a wonderful story that I think is going to help a lot of people. I think more people than we realize go through struggles like that, and for them to, even if it's just one person to tune in and be able to realize that they're not alone, I think is very impactful. So I really thank you for doing that.
yeah, thanks for having me. I was definitely out of my comfort zone, and I was not at all expecting to do this at any point in my life, but here we are, and
Yeah,
hopefully it'll be helpful to somebody else along the way.
cool. Well, thank you so much. It's cool. I'm gonna get to see in St. Louis. So, and it's a 1 day
That's
event,
cool
so we'll be
stuff.
able to compete and yeah, I guess I don't know if we'll be able to pay attention and watch each other compete because we might all be competing at the same time. But my daughter's going to be with us though, so you'll get to meet
Oh.
her. So
How old is your daughter?
because she's 8,
Oh,
so she's fun. So she'll enjoy it. I already told her today. I was like, okay, you got to go with me to the Highland Games. She's like, Dad, why would you tell me that? I don't want to go. And I'm like, well, you have to go. So let's make the best out of this.
ready or not, here we go.
So, yeah, she'll love it though. She's one of those where she'll kind of fight it a little bit, but when we're there, she's gonna be like, "This is cool, Dad. I want to get a kilt. I want to do the Highland Games." Like I can just already imagine the dialogue that's gonna happen afterwards. So,
Well, and there's the whole
yeah. So
Scottish
I'm
festival
excited
and
about it.
everything in addition to that. So she'll get to see all that stuff too, and that'll be fun.
Exactly. That'll be a blast. Cool. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much. And I'm sure this won't be the last time. Like I said, we're going to try to get everybody together for maybe some Highlands Games recaps. And you
All
are definitely invited to be part of the gang on all that. We'll see, I guess, how big we can get this
right.
Highland Games. Who knows? We might keep meeting people. We might have a huge group of people just on the call talking about it. So we'll
Yeah,
we'll
that'd be
see.
fun.
Okay. Well, awesome, Tiffany. Well, thank you for hopping on again, and I'll see you later. Okay.
All right, I'll see you.